Welcome to Property Pulse with Andre at EZI Properties here on E-Radio. And last week we had a nice introduction to Andre and EZI Properties. And this week we have a topic that we're tackling. Well, Andre is going to tell us all about it. A seller's guide to selling your home. Andre Kleinans, CEO and founder of EZI Properties, joins us. Andre, when is the best time to sell your home?
Well, there's four factors to consider when you sell your home. I think that's probably the biggest investment that a homeowner has made. So when it comes to selling your home, they need to make sure that the process runs smoothly and that they can reap the benefits of that investment. So I believe most homeowners hope that they can sell their homes quickly, make a decent profit, especially if they've owned it for a long time, that it has appreciated in value. So there's many reasons people sell, obviously, from upsizing, downscaling, making a profit, job transfers, retirement, death, and so forth. So ultimately, all of these have got the same goal, is to sell the home within a reasonable amount of time or making a decent profit. So there's a number of factors that I believe that one needs to take into consideration to make the process as efficient and beneficial for you as possible. The key factor is obviously the right price. If it's got the right price tag and it's priced correctly, it should attract the serious buyers within the first few weeks and sell within a reasonable amount of time. An experienced property practitioner should be able to tell you what that property is worth by researching values of comparable properties and how your property compares with others in the area. Timing, very important. Most homeowners actually want to sell quickly, but it doesn't always work out for them like that, depending on market conditions that are, just not favorable, like we've got currently, high interest rate cycles and a difficult economy. So people need to take that in mind when they're selling. Often people ask us, what is better as well in terms of seasons. We find that during the warmer months, when our home looks and the garden looks at its most attractive, those are easier, to sell in. But there are always buyers. So if you have to list your home during, winter, there are other ways you can create interest. Just imagine having a fire going there in that fireplace, adding to the warmth and ambience, which really helps. So in the market, it's also about taking into consideration three last factors. Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? How many homes are for sale currently in your area? How long have they been on the market, and for what average price? And then certainly we mentioned interest rates. Are the interest rates currently low or high? So that is the considerations.
Where is the current real market or real estate market at?
Well, the market is determined by supply and demand, which dictates whether it's a buyer's or a seller's market. So in a seller's market, there is more demand than supply, meaning there are more buyers than there are houses for sale. So homes placed in the market during this time will often be sold quickly, on average, and possibly for even a higher selling price. In a buyer's market, there is more supply than demand, meaning that there are more homes for sale than there are actual buyers. We find ourselves currently in a strong buyer's market. But that doesn't mean that your house won't sell during these times. A home placed on the market during this time can stay on the market for longer periods in time than we are used to. And, their price will probably decrease from what you would expect. But by making sure that your home is correctly priced, it's show ready, will basically increase your chances of a sale within a reasonable amount of time. Just if I may, interesting enough, so a very good question, what type of market? Now, on the same basis, people often ask us, what do I buy my home, another house first, or do I first sell the one I'm in? So there's no hard and fast rule about what you should do. In my opinion, the process of selling your home and buying another often happens simultaneously. So the offer to purchase will, determine how the conditions of sale in terms of clauses that's found in there, that you can expect. how to do and handle the actual sale. Are we talking about the time period for selling your house and all those type of things? Obviously, especially when it is, and then you find the perfect property, the dreaded 72-hour clause makes its appearance, which just basically says that if they find another buyer whilst you're trying to sell your property and they have received a bond, they will give you 72 hours notice, and the other after purchase will replace yours. So in my opinion, it doesn't really matter when you want to sell. It's more important to price your home correctly, because pricing your home in a realistic market related value, obviously will increase the opportunity to sell the property where people are looking for fair value and so forth. Make use of an estate agent. There are many factors to consider, and we will be able to point out which of these unique aspects or features of your home which will affect their potential selling price.
Okay. And Andre, just out of interest's sake, what should you do to prepare your home for a sale?
Well, I think creating a good impression of your home will attract a willing buyer. So fixing up the important things will increase the chances of a sale at your preferred price. So the first step is to take the time, walk around, look at your property, make notes of things that needs fixing, that don't work correctly, because these are often issues that buyers will turn away from and say, listen, we don't want this particular property. These are problems that's found involves faulty plug points, light fittings, a crack in the wall, ceilings, floor damage. Most times require very minor adjustments of repairs before they can be sold. Having said that, though, I would rather first get in touch with a professional, real estate agent to evaluate whether a fix-up is really necessary or whether this is likely to offer good returns, because often people just expect that they can charge much more, when they basically just bringing it back into a position of repair. So you have to also bear in mind that sometimes homes are bought for renovation purposes, and obviously a fix-up won't be necessary. So before you embark on that expensive revamp, consider it if it's worthwhile, for a successful sale. So to answer the question again in short, small repairs in most cases, yes, because they can increase the home's value. They help to create a better first impression, and buyers prefer definitely a move-in ready home. So, yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. You know what I always find really difficult, Andre, is when you go to a house, whether you're going to buy it or rent it, and you see the other people's furniture in there. It's so hard sometimes to, especially if they have poor taste, it's so hard sometimes to imagine your own furniture in there. I don't know if you have any experience in what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. And I think maybe just to put it in a different way, is clutter. I mean,
Yep.
You walk into a place, empty places obviously look smaller than what they are. And again, any room, that is completely cluttered looks, again, much smaller. So it's difficult for people to even envision how their furniture is going to look like in there. So, that's one of the things that we often say to people during the consultation as well, that it's best, get rid of junk, stuff that you don't need, rather move them out. It just makes it so much easier to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some contention exists around the following topic, but do I, as a seller, sign an open mandate or a sole mandate, Andre?
Jan, I just love this question. It makes sense that the high number of estate agents trying to sell the property, I think for people. So for a seller, it makes sense. But some might be inclined to think so, but this is not necessarily the case. So in fact, most instances where an open mandate, is taken, it actually delays the property sale and creates a myriad of problems. Just before I go on with that, I'll actually just want to, for the listeners, clarify as well that there's three types of mandates. So obviously an open mandate, the seller will select a number of agencies and instruct them to market the property. The agent who makes the final sale will be entitled to the commission. Okay. In this instance, the seller may also sell the property himself. Then you get what is known as a dual mandate. The seller instructs a limited number, it's normally 2, maximum of 3 companies to sell the property. And the agency that makes the final sale will be entitled to the commission. So none of the others get anything, but at least you have less. I mean, we've got properties where people select up to 15 agents, which doesn't really makes sense, but I'll come to that in a second. So last but not least is the sole mandate. And this is where the seller gives the agency the sole right to market that property exclusively. So it's usually granted for a limited time and due to the restriction nature of it. So if the property is sold by another agency during that period, the seller will remain liable for paying commission to the agency who has the sole mandate. Now, starting again with the open mandate, I think the risk of open mandates is not as known to people as what it should be. There are, in fact, more cases that end up in court than what people think. Given that your property, or at least giving your property to multiple agents to sell, could actually land you in hot water, where the seller has to pay either double commission or claim commission on a private sale. Now, several boards are put up outside, which just screams desperation. Not what potential buyers want to think about when they wonder why there are so many agents involved. You know, is there something wrong with the property inherently? So in an open mandate scenario, also agents will bring the seller the first offer they receive, which may not be the best offer. This is because they want to get the offer to the seller before another agent does. The thing is, when selling your home, you want buyers to be competing and not the agents. Something that people tend to forget. So I'll just repeat that. When selling your home, you want the buyers to compete and not the agents, because the agents aren't the ones that's buying the property. So what sellers don't realize is that agents will also spend 80% of their time on their sole mandates and the remaining 20% on open mandates. Now, you may ask me why. The reason is because agents don't want to spend time, money, effort, petrol, marketing a home only to lose the deal to another agent. So we work purely on a commission basis. So if you don't sell, you don't make any money. So an open mandate is risky for an agent, as it could cost them a lot of money and result in no reward. It makes more sense for them, obviously, to use their resources on their sole mandates. That's why they would rather neglect the open mandate. So why spend countless hours hosting show days, bringing people, researching, advising the seller on how best communication, feedback, marketing funds, only for another agent to join the party and then reap the rewards. So a sole mandate, on the other hand, means that the agency has been exclusively appointed, as I mentioned earlier. They will be able to close the deal for your benefit and fulfill their mandate. They do this finding you a willing and able buyer at the price you are looking for. And then the agency has that exclusivity, which is, as I mentioned, is normally for a fixed period known as the mandate period. So not only is this focused on finding you a buyer, but also getting you the best price for your home, not that desperate price that the other guys are chasing. They also know that they can invest more money into your property, literally probably opening up the purse to spend more on marketing and time to find the right buyer. So, Jan, let me ask you a question today. How willing will you be to start a new job where your salary has not yet been determined and you have no employment contract?
Oh, Andre, I don't think that's a good idea.
Of course not. So, you want a strong and dedicated focus from an estate agency in return for the confidence that you place in them to find you the right buyer. So with a sole mandate, you'll get a greater investment from your appointed agency in their marketing campaign for your property. In my opinion, I always say to people, reduce the agreement to a contract. Then whatever you do, employ the agent, because this reduces your risk and any confusion that may arrive from interpretation and issues later on.
Very interesting, Andre. Moving on now, with hundreds of agents available, how do you find the right estate agent?
Just not on Facebook. Jokes aside, I mean, I saw posts early this morning, where people are actually already suggesting over 100 different agents. So in my opinion, that's definitely not necessarily the route to go, because, everybody wants to help either a friend, a family member, or whatever, and you don't necessarily get the right advice. I believe the most common way to find them is via word of mouth, signboards in your area. Success leaves clues. And then online, do a little bit of research. Your estate agent should be able to demonstrate that they have experience in selling houses as well as the necessary qualification. If they have a great reputation, sellers will recommend them. Ask around. You'll get an idea of who can potentially work, well with your property. So if an agent has a lot of for sale boards in an area, this often means that they have good experience in selling property in your neighborhood. So I mentioned searching online. You'll find a long, extensive list of registered real estate agencies and obviously the property practitioners that work for us that are active. But it's important that they also have an online reputation. Look at Google reviews, stuff like that, where you will get a very good idea of, are these guys really living up to, their ethos and so forth. Last but not least, I think very important, there are still a number of estate agents out there that are not properly registered with the PPRA. So that is quite important, in order to make sure that the agent that you select is in actual fact not working under supervision alone, and then that they are properly registered. Last but not least, just a word of caution to people as well. Don't just pick the agent that gives you the highest valuation. It's not always the best agent to select, because you don't know if that is an agent with the least experience, or they're deliberately using a marketing strategy to overprice, secure the mandate, and then they just take time to wear you down in the price.
So price often comes up. How do you price your property correctly?
Well, there's a multiple of factors that needs to be taken into account when you do a valuation. I mean, first starting with municipal valuations, the index value, which is essentially just when you've bought plus the index growth over a number of years, that is compounded. And, when you do a comparative market analysis, and I'll refer to this, during the course of the session, the comparative market analysis, meaning that it's a CMA, to indicate the sale price of other homes. So, you can compare with prices of places that have sold. Then also to look at, what is currently in the market and what are they asking for that. So obviously annual sales and the listing trends of that neighborhood is very important. We use specific tools that we can actually break this further down, and we can even look at it in terms of a specific street, which is really drilling down. And we find that obviously not all of the companies are using exactly the same type of tools, but we have a fantastic tool that does that. But factors such as the building size, the plot size, the design, the location. We often speak about the 4 valuable things that people look at to determine, that influences prices. Location across the world. It's the same. Next is price. The third one is condition. And the last is picking the right agent. But coming back to my list, obviously the condition of the home's interior, exterior, fixtures, finishing, fittings, the amount of upkeep, how well maintained, is it modern? We are not comparing apples with apples in essence, because of the fact that we are looking at, an old home that is being completely refurbished. So, you can't then look at a house and say, but it's similar to mine, and, I believe I can get the same price. Lastly, market conditions, obviously, that influences the price, what people realistically pay for houses in your neighborhood. That's an important factor, because, a lot of people look at and say, yeah, but I remember this place was in the market for 3 million or 10 million, and that means that mine should be of similar value. But they don't take into account what was actually paid for the property. And then obviously we do, desktop valuations for some of the banks and things. So it's the amount of that the banks are comfortable, loaning potential buyers. Just if I may, there's a couple of other factors I think one should bear in mind. So, and these are just misconceptions that I would like to address as well. What you've paid for your home has got nothing to do with its present value. I mean, the value of your property should increase roughly by the suburb average growth rate per annum. So if you bought it 10 years ago and the average growth rate is at 4%, so this is that index value that I spoke about earlier, then this is one yardstick of measure where, you can get to a particular value of what it will sell to today. Obviously, you need to take into consideration, was there any alterations, during that time, because you've got to factor that in as well. So if you've overspent in an area and you want to sell again in a short period of time, it doesn't matter what you paid for it. The current market, will determine the current value. And that's obviously also, the market responds or they don't. So we often in training refer to this as well and say, doesn't matter what the seller wants for his property or what we believe we think that it's worth. The market will respond, because if they find the value, they will purchase. If they don't and they compare it to others, well, then you know that the price is probably or the condition is wrong. So just the last two. The price you would like to achieve for your home doesn't dictate the asking price. The current market, I just mentioned this, determines the value of your property. And if it's not selling, it means that the market is rejecting the asking price. So just maybe a short summary of what I just said. The value of what other agents are also putting on your property could not be accurate. As we said earlier, to substantiate the value assessment, experience, and so forth, it's very important to look at the selling price, broadly speaking, location, supply and demand. And I mentioned earlier about overpricing to get a mandate. And then, when the property doesn't sell, there's lots of tears about costs and so forth, but it was because it was not correctly priced from the start. And this is an unfortunate truth that we see often in the market as well. Yeah, when taking into consideration, just the last one, I think people should base their assessment on the actual price achieved and not the listing price, as I've mentioned as well. Properties have not yet sold and these asking prices may be too high. So the banks are continuously, I mentioned this last week, often publicizing and saying that properties are overvalued by at least 10 or 15%. And that is then basically what influences, and when prospective buyers come, they immediately offer you, far less. And that shouldn't be priced into a pricing strategy, because then you're definitely, already taking the pricing strategy in the wrong direction.
Okay, and Andre, what marketing can I expect when I list my property for sale? And I was also wondering, do you as the agency pay for it?
Yes, indeed, we do. So again, as I've mentioned earlier, if you get them to open the purse, then you can expect that they do a far, a lot more than having an open mandate. So we have a comprehensive marketing plan that is discussed with each potential seller when we sit down with them. We also use various marketing channels to showcase the properties to a wider audience, your online platforms. I mean, there's 14 different web portals that properties are, exposed to, social media in a big way, and then often traditional advertising methods that could contribute to creating a robust marketing strategy. I believe that people should just ask their question to the agent in the selection period process when they're looking at employing an agent, is what methods do they use to market your property to its fullest potential.
Okay, and what is this property condition report that I hear people talk about?
This was implemented from the 1st of February 2022. It's a mandatory disclosure form. And its legal implications was introduced by the Property Practitioners Act So essentially through that act, they had forced it down on sellers that they have to answer basic questions regarding the condition of their property versus just relying on foot stewards and so forth. So until there are clear-cut cases, we'll see how the courts will interpret, and where this will go further. But yes, you cannot sell a property because they will not allow the transfer unless the property condition report has been, completed. We have extended on ours as well to actually make a bit more provision and make it, easier for misunderstanding in terms of wording and so forth. So yeah, it's a very simple document with a couple of basic questions. I'll give you one. Are you aware of any problem with the plumbing? Yes or no? It's as simple as that.
Okay, well, that's easy enough. And Andre, by the way, does show houses still work? Do you still do show houses?
Yeah, now that is a very interesting question. Generally, I know that, we're all concerned about security and what that entails, just throwing your house open to the public. Let me give you a first-handed example. As a selling principal, I do take on properties from time to time because it means that I'm actually staying in touch with the market. A while back, my wife said to me, we have not had great amount of leads on a particular property. We understand where the market is and those type of things, but I said to her, listen, I'm not convinced. I don't know if show houses still work. You see a lot of agents, less of them are doing this, and I don't know. Anyway, she convinced me that we should do a show house. Not only did I actually have 11 different couples coming through the property, I actually took 3 offers on this unit that we in the first 4 weeks battled to sell. So according to me, yes, you should actually, it's part of that whole marketing strategy, is you should use all avenues. And if that means putting out the boards and spending a Sunday afternoon selling the property, that's what you do.
Okay, so it works. And then finally, Andre, what do I do when I receive an offer to purchase?
An offer to purchase is obviously the contract that serves to protect the parties involved, and then to ensure that there's nothing left to interpretation. Once the agent has in actual fact signed that, he's received it back from the purchaser, they will present it to the seller. And there's a couple of clauses and a few things that one should look out for. There are 5 very specific legal requirements that make a contract legal. I'll just give you a brief description, such as a detailed description of the property, full details with both the buyer and the seller, the purchase price that they're going to pay, how will it be paid, and so forth. But there are things that are included in there that is often a problem as well. So fixtures and fittings, what is included? So I have a general rule of thumb that I'm saying is if I take if you sit at the Wimpy and you take a bowl of those sugar sachets and you turn it upside down, everything that falls out, that can go. Anything that is fixed must remain. There are very specific suspensive conditions. 2 that sits in most contracts. Firstly is, do they have another house that they needed to sell? I mentioned earlier about the the conditions regarding a subject to sale property. And then obviously the other suspensive condition is it could be suspensive on the fact that they should be getting a bond. So if the bond is declined by the banks, then essentially that just ends the contract. And then it will normally have a clear stipulation in terms of when the seller will vacate, date of occupation given to the purchaser, and so forth. I think that suffices to say, for today in terms of the contract. I'll actually spend in one of the sessions a little bit more time on the contract and the typical issues that we normally find with these as well to sort of educate the market with regards to that. But That would be the process. Once you've received it and it's been signed and you're happy with the price, those conditions and everything has been clearly explained. And once they've been met, it'll go through the transfer process, and hopefully within 2 to 3 months from the transfer of the property to the new purchaser.
This has been very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Andre Kleinans, CEO and founder of EZI Properties. That was this week's Property Pulse. Thank you so much.
Ian, thank you very much.